Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. It's Thursday, September 25th. I'm Patrick Daugherty, joined by Denny Carter and Kyle Dvorchak, who, if you're watching on YouTube, his head appears larger than ever. Kyle, you are really framed up there. We're here. There you go. We're here to preview Week 4, the entire slate. That includes 2 games on Monday night. We got games in New York City. We got games in California. We got games in Ireland for some reason. All right, we're in Dublin, Ireland this week. Kyle, by the way, can you do that game Sunday morning?
Yeah. I almost offered, so that's all right.
Kyle will be on the Ireland game. The Vikings on their European road trip. We're on Colts at Rams, Ravens at Chiefs. This is setting up for a Felford again Lifetime Achievement Award, by the way. The Ravens favored in Kansas City. The Zoomers will never, ever learn. Packers at Cowboys, Jaguars at 49ers. Entire slate, every fantasy relevant player will be talked about here. But we would be remiss if we did not mention it's the final week of our nation's pastime regular season baseball, you may know it as. And as usual, there's a fierce debate about some of the awards, none fiercer than AL MVP. We're like, listen, quote unquote, Aaron Judge has more WAR, better average, higher on base percentage, higher slugging, literally historic in every single metric and even counting stat. Last time I checked, though, this is America. And if there's a catcher named the Big Dumper who hits 60 home runs, he's the MVP. Am I right, Denny?
I think you're right. Look, and I'm a baseball guy through and through. So here's my take on that situation is that catchers usually suck. And so you finally found one who's not bad. And so you got to give him something, and the AL MVP. I mean, look, obviously Judge is the best player in baseball. That doesn't matter. You finally found a catcher who can hit. And so he needs to be the MVP.
Sounds like Denny forgot Shohei Ohtani exists. Let's laugh at him, Kyle. Come on.
Oh my God, this idiot! There are 2 Travis Hunters in the world, and one of them's good, and you forgot about the good one.
I'm sorry. I haven't heard about this guy since he signed with the Dodgers. What's
hoping that's a joke. Judge is probably the best overall hitter. Ohtani is the best overall player. The Big Dumper is the most deserving AL MVP, though. Real quick, guys, from the gut. Denny, is Yadier Molina a Hall of Famer, and why is the answer yes?
Absolutely, because he was the mascot for the Cardinals.
Kyle.
Absolutely. He is one of the best pitch framers I've ever seen. I've watched every one of his games, and he changed the way pitchers play the game. I think that's maybe sort of at least vaguely relevant.
It actually is a little bit true. Yadier Molina did kind of change the game. Kyle Raleigh changing the game by being the first ever good hitting catcher. Yadier Molina had a few good years, guys. He got some MVP votes a few years. Hashtag Yachty number 4 HOF. But now we're on to
oh my God.
Get it trending.
Get it trending. From blowing a 26-7 lead in Philadelphia. They meet up this week in Los Angeles. So the Rams roughly 3.5-point home favorites, Kyle. Daniel Jones has held his own against the Broncos between feasting on 2 cupcake opponents. This is going to be a much stiffer test in LA. What should realistic expectations be for a player who has so far been blowing by his realistic expectations?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to step on the rake, right? Because at some point, Daniel Jones cannot be
obvious fraud, not going to get away with it anymore. Let's go.
Quite literally the league leader in EPA per dropback right now, I believe. I don't think he'll finish the season as the most efficient quarterback in the NFL, but all of the other metrics support the idea that he is deserving of being one of the most efficient quarterbacks from a clean pocket with no play actions, no screens. This is just big boy throws, no gimmick stuff, but also you get time to throw. He is averaging 10.7 yards per attempt, 0.8 EPA per play, and a 76% accurate throw rate. All 3 of those marks are top 3 marks in the NFL. They're also massive improvements over what he did to date up until week 1, all of his time with the Giants. I hesitate to say he's an entirely different player, but at least he is playing like a different player. And it could just be that playing for one of the worst organizations in football really hurt his career for 6 or whatever years it was. This will be a tougher matchup, and I think it's probably one where we should have a little bit of caution, but not enough to rank him outside of the QB1 top 12 range. You, even in a tough matchup, probably still have to rank him not only top 12, but probably within the top 10. He's crushing it through the air, and he's a goal line back. The only quarterbacks with more carries inside the 5 are Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. That combo of good through the air and can skate by, can really hit ceiling outcomes, but can also skate by on floor passing outcomes because he's a runner. He's easily top 10 this week, I think, or at least top
number 10 overall quarterback this week. Kyle, just broke it down super well. And Denny, I just kind of feel like with Daniel Jones, like I feel like the Giants, like they could accept, they intellectually understood like Saquon Barkley would be better once he gets away from this chaotic environment. We didn't do a good enough job building up the team. But listen, we did everything we could with Daniel Jones. Like I feel like Daniel Jones actually being good might end the Giants franchise.
I see online posts from Giants fans and I get worried just about their collective mental health. I mean, it's not that Daniel Jones is like kind of better, a little bit better. He's, like Kyle said, by some measures, the best quarterback in football.
Yeah,
like
some are calling him, quote, fully reborn.
Right. And it's a good system, and like I said, Shane Steichen has never done anything wrong. But these people are going to go insane if somebody else leaves their team and instantly becomes like a Hall of Famer. It's crazy.
Daniel Jones baptized by the fires of Lucas Oil. Denny Carter, but a big part of this hot start for Daniel Jones and the Colts has been a deep, varied skill core. Alec Pierce, we assumed was going to be one of the big losers of Daniel Jones's arrival under center. Instead, they've actually hit it off. Daniel Jones has been throwing down the field more than he did in New York. He's been more effective when doing so than he was in New York. But so this is not like a skill core full of superstars. Maybe Tyler Warren will change that, but it depends on its depth and its variety. Alec Pierce, with a really concerning concussion history, is probably out this week with his latest concussion. Are we worried about that? How do things shake out without Alec Pierce for the Colts pass catchers?
I think it is a ding to Daniel Jones's prospects for week 4 because it's a bad matchup. I'm not saying that you're benching Daniel Jones. Certainly you shouldn't try to. It
sounds like you think that we should,
unless you have a better option, but unless you have a top 10 option. But anyway,
Daniel Jones, a top 10 option.
Right.
We already established that.
I mean, but people have like Baker Mayfield and Jones. So, but I'm going to be real with you guys. I didn't know that Alec Pierce was running 81% of the routes before his head injury. He was seeing a team high 35% of the team's air yards. That's a big chunk that's missing now, from this offense. Part of me thinks that Josh Downs will be the winner here, but because he's only running like 60% of the routes because he's the slot guy, but it could be AD Mitchell.
Yes.
Mitchell could be the one who takes on this role that's been occupied by Pierce. So to say like, oh, Pierce is out, therefore it's down season, I feel like that's a little presumptuous at the moment.
Yeah, Mitchell could just be a 1-for-1 replacement for Alec Pierce this weekend. AD Mitchell and the GPP get it trending.
Oh.
Kyle, is Blake Corum sorry.
Hashtag AD for MVP Hawk trending.
Yeah, that's right. Hashtag GPP. Kyle, is Blake Corum curbing Kyren Williams' style in the RB 10 to 15 range? The theory of Kyren is always he plays 80% of the snaps. He gets 90% of the touches. He's playing 75% of the snaps still, but that does ding him as Blake Corum's playing around a third of the snaps. Is this kind of pushing Kyren Williams out of the top 12 into more mid-range RB2 territory? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think you laid it out well. As you point out, the selling point on Kyren was always that anyone, as long as you're competent, who sees the entirety of a backfield is almost penciled in for RB1 work. And really what determines if they can be a top 3, the number 1 overall running back, is their talent. And Kyren's been fine. He's been a starter/starter plus, but the draw is that he sees all of the work. Last year, you saw 78% of the team's carries, 64% route rate, 75% of the goal line work. Those are down to 71%, 50%, 60%. Those are not massive drops, but they're notable, and they're notable for a back who gets there specifically on volume. So to me, I think you laid it out well. He's still very clearly an RB2. He's still seeing a very good role, but a good role with a just okay player is not RB1 potential anymore.
Denny, real quick, we would be remiss if we did not mention I did not know Davante Adams was not practicing when I originally wrote up the show sheet. He missed it on Wednesday. Seems like he'll probably be out there. But Davante Adams, we've been really liking what we've seen so far, have we not?
Yeah, I mean, he's near the team lead in air yards. A little bit of a high variance profile for him, more than we're used to seeing. But that's because Puka Nacua takes all the short area and intermediate stuff in this offense as it should be. But if he plays, you throw him in there. I like the potential of this game as something of a back and forth. And I wanted to mention just quickly on the Colts rushing defense, it hasn't been tested at all because they've been boat racing a lot of teams early in the season, but the Colts are allowing the 5th highest rate of rush yards before contact, which is usually correlated with rushing production, big runs. So I think Kyron's matchup is not as bad as it might seem on paper.
And this is the classic. We're going to learn a lot about the Colts. They had a tough week 2 opponent in Denver, but Denver can't match points with anyone right now. The Rams are both a good defense, not quite as good as Denver's, but an actually good offense. This is the first real big test for Daniel Jones. But Daniel Jones, again, we didn't expect him to ace even easy tests coming into the year, and he's done that. Really important game this Sunday, though. For some reason, favored in Kansas City after their latest horrendous defensive performance in week 3, the fraudulent Ravens. Now the Ravens arrive to face a nemesis who should finally be getting its number 1 receiver back, Denny. Although Patrick Mahomes has been more aggressive this season, at least to my eyes, I actually haven't looked into the metrics on this at all. The results have still been mediocre with this middling supporting cast. What does Xavier Worthy's long-awaited, long-expected return do for this offense this weekend? Again, against the Ravens defense that's just really struggling right now.
Here's what you can say about Mahomes. He's trying. He's trying to hit it downfield a little more. 8.8 air yards per attempt through 3 games. That is way higher than we've seen over the past 2.5 seasons.
Okay, thank God. My gut was right, actually.
Yeah,
so, Denny, I kid you not. I noted this in 10 takeaways from week 3, and the header for it was "at least he's trying."
Yeah.
It hasn't been awfully effective, but it is meaningful.
He's trying.
Sorry,
he's trying, and so that could matter more when Xavier Worthy is back and playing a full complement of snaps, which I don't know if he's going to do that this week, but if he does, he could see some opportunity downfield. Tyquan Thornton is the only guy that's seeing the downfield stuff from Mahomes. He had some success last week against the Giants. I did want to mention the Chiefs are 9% over their expected pass rates. That's the highest in the league. I think that has something to do with having such a terrible rushing attack, which we'll get to in a second. But there should be lots of volume to go around. If you have Worthy, as I do in a couple important leagues, you're throwing him in there immediately.
I just want to share a super quick take on these Chiefs receivers, where I think kind of the general consensus is that as soon as Xavier Worthy's back, then like the little Tyquan Thornton sideshow is over. I kind of feel like Xavier Worthy coming back could almost make Thornton more valuable. This is an offense so starved for targets of any kind, and Worthy actually occupying defensive attention. They want Tyquan Thornton to be like a shot play specialist. Maybe he's free. Maybe he's loose down the field more often. Sure. So I would not just immediately drop Tyquan Thornton.
I wouldn't either. I know, we're having fun, Tyquan Thornton. But, he is seeing some very valuable, like, high-leverage targets downfield.
Kyle, Denny and I talked about it on Tuesday, that it just did not look like the regular Lamar Jackson on Monday evening. 7 sacks. I think he took, like, 23 all last year, some absurdly low number. Was getting tackled from behind. Quite possibly just a fluke. But what is it a potential concern, especially on a short week going on a road and to face like one of their arch rivals?
So I watched the same game as you guys, obviously, but I had a different takeaway. And it very much looked to me like Lamar was like steadfastly keeping his eyes downfield. Because like even Lamar on one leg, like if he was dealing with the highest of ankle sprains, can outrun any defender on the field. To me, it very much looked like they were seeing something on tape that said, if you hold the ball long enough, you will have a receiver open. And that didn't end up manifesting, but that is also exactly what the Lions did last year. They were the 3rd highest team in pressure rate, and they are also one of the highest teams in explosive play rate conceded. They got to the quarterback with ease. If the quarterback got the ball off, it was a very explosive play. And I just think the Lions ended up coming out on the positive side of that variant style of play that they did on defense, where they're trying to cause havoc, but they also concede their own levels of havoc when they do so. I'm not really worried about Lamar from that perspective. I think that was just a game plan specific situation. Obviously, he's still a top 5 fantasy quarterback, and I'm totally in on Zay Flowers bouncing back this week.
Lamar not on the injury report this week. I did think one point late in the game, he kind of walked off the field stiffly, but it might have been because he had just gotten sacked 7 times.
Yeah, probably.
Not on the injury report. That was an interesting matchup. We'll see if it was a one-off. Almost certainly was a one-off. Denny, you referenced it earlier. The Chiefs backfield, Pacheco, Hunt, they're just kind of cannibalizing each other. Neither are taking it and running with it. Neither are doing really anything of note. So do we care about anything in this Chiefs backfield right now?
I want to say no, but it's such a good matchup that if Pacheco or Hunt is ever going to get there, it's against these guys. Like the Ravens opponents through 3 games have a 49% neutral pass rate. That's the lowest in the league. I wrote them up for the Funnel Defense Report, which will be out on Friday on Rotoworld. Isaiah Pacheco has 25 rushing attempts to 23 rushing attempts for Kareem Hunt through 3 games. So not exactly dominating, but if you're ever going to feel okay about playing Pacheco, I think you do it here, because the Ravens are so soft against the run, and the Chiefs have got to at least try. They have to at least try to establish it.
Please don't try and beg.
Say two things there, Denny, is that they're just as soft against the pass. I think they're allowing the most passing yards in the league. The Ravens defense is just kind of falling apart. And to that point, Adam points out there was a report from The Athletic that their, quote, entire interior defensive line did not practice.
Talking about Baltimore?
Yeah, for the Ravens. So the Ravens defense in crisis, really, really, really smart team that goes through these stretches, and they almost always get them corrected. So what we see in 1 week from the Ravens might not translate to the next, but it's been 3 weeks. Pretty shaky. A Ravens defense. Kyle, quickly, we talked a lot about Mark Andrews this week. What's the final word there with Isaiah likely probably returning, still only limited in practice? It's not a guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he does return, we already saw last week, Mark Andrews popped off. Like, a very good game from him, all due credit, after we were saying, like, he just doesn't look like a starting NFL tight end through 2 weeks.
Let's be real, fluke. I mean, who cares? Anyone can have one good game.
It was garbage time.
I was going to say, the season-long stats are still very not favorable to him, because one good game can't save him from how unproductive he was in the first 2 games. It's not to say that's guaranteed to be who he is, but it also came in a contest in which he had a season-low route rate. I think that maybe speaks to something that we could see going forward, is he might just be most productive now when he's not getting a full allotment of snaps. So maybe, I don't want to say it's a good thing that Isaiah likely is coming back. You'd rather just have him play every snap, but he wasn't doing that anyway, and he was still productive last year despite splitting that role. So on the one hand, I'm a little less optimistic that last week is who he is. I'm at least a little more optimistic that he can survive likely coming back, though, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, maybe likely's return just makes it more likely that when Mark Andrews is on the field, it's for like design targets, or like he's one of the first or second reads on the play, and just easier to get on the ball. Doesn't have to do as much blocking. Likely, I don't think people are going to like this. I did immediately return him to top 20. It's just kind of like the mid-range to low-end tight end 2 who can change a matchup on like only 2 or 3 catches. He, of course, could take a big fat 0. But likely is kind of different from a lot of his mid-range tight end 2 competition, and that he does have explosive play potential. Really excited to see him play football this year. Hopefully it's this Sunday. Hopefully you're still listening when we come right back after this. Micah Parsons makes his dramatic return to Dallas this Sunday night when the Packers square off with the Cowboys. Coverage of the big battle begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. Plus, don't forget to start your day with fantasy football pregame as Matthew Berry, Jay Croucher, Lawrence Jackson, and George Savarikas are on the ground in Big D, bringing you the latest news you need to set your lineups.
Guys, if the over-under on Jerry Jones shots during that Cowboys-Packers game is set at 70, you have to go over.
You do. Yeah. Well, but Denny, that's because that's a smart production decision.
It's
a game, of course, on Sunday Night Football.
In fact, I'm lobbying for NBC to have a Jerry cam.
Yes,
not literally.
Maybe like a simulcast.
Yeah,
like literally, yes.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, every time Mike Parsons on the field, I want to see this guy's face.
Denny, we actually do know people. Let's reach out and propose the Jerry cam.
I'd say we're gonna get it trending. That's what we're gonna.
By the way, I want to get Jerry Jones. I still have not finished the 8-part Netflix like infotainment docu-series in the Cowboys. It's amazing, despite being Cowboys hagiography. All I'll say is that Jerry Jones, and this is kind of giving me Howard Hughes vibes. If you don't know who that is, please Google it. You'll have a fun day on Wikipedia with that one. Reeling from what could prove to be the most embarrassing loss by any team all season, the Packers arrive, and Big D is touchdown favorites, Denny Carter. We'll get to the Cowboys and their injury mess in a second, but we will start with the Packers. Did we see anything of note from Matthew Golden in Week 3 as the Packers adjust to life without Jaden Reed? And will Jordan Love finally open it up, or be allowed to open it up against the Cowboys pass defense that just has not guarded a soul this year?
All right, we'll start with Matthew Golden. With Jaden Reed out last week against the Browns, Golden ran 71% of the routes. He was targeted on a humble 18% of those routes.
Yeah, it's okay.
He had one big play. But the answer to your second question is absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's no way Jordan Love will be able to cook here, because you can run on the Cowboys, and if you can run on a team, then the Packers are going to do it. There's no volume coming for these Packers pass catchers. No one's coming to save you. Sorry.
Kyle, you weren't supposed to talk about. Come on, tell him he's wrong. Well, he's wrong, right? Like Packers actually have to pass against this team.
No, have to. No, have to. No. The thing is, they really could put up 250 yards on 23 attempts.
Yeah,
this can be a 10 plus yards per attempt spot because it's a terrible defense and a really talented pass catching / quarterbacking / offensive line group. They can get there on low volume, but you should expect that you have to get there on low volume.
Actually do something cool for once in your life, Matt LaFleur. Challenge. It's a terrible Cowboys defense, Kyle. It's becoming a terrible Cowboys offense because of injuries. They're without CeeDee Lamb, at least this game. Well, Saturday we'll probably find out if he's going to end up in injured reserve or not, which would cost him 4 games. With CeeDee out, facing this hellacious Packers defense, is it safe to say Dak Prescott is no longer a QB1? Dak Prescott already kind of one of the bigger fantasy disappointments of the season.
Yeah, I don't think, especially in this spot, I don't think in any spot right now, but especially in this Packers spot, you really can't treat him as a QB1. A team total of 20.25 is lower than the quarterback-less Jets at this point. It seems like Justin Fields is going to play, but it might be Tyrod Taylor, and Vegas thinks that they're going to score more points than Dallas. The Cardinals and the Carson Wentz-led Vikings all are projected to score more points.
Yeah.
Dak averages 8.7 adjusted yards per attempt when throwing to CeeDee. That is the second best connection of his career. I believe Amari Cooper is the first out of the players he's thrown 100 passes to. This is the best, or I guess second best by that metric, receiver he's ever thrown to. And I don't think we can expect George Pickens, who's averaging I was going to say pretty underwhelming. It's bad, 1.3 yards per route run. I think he'll improve, right? He has to, or this team is screwed, which maybe just says this team is screwed. He will improve, but you just cannot fill the void left by CeeDee, and you certainly can't do it against the Packers. I really wouldn't consider starting Dak this week.
If George Pickens does not improve, a second Christmas Traditions is going up in Denny's backyard before it's even November 1st. They're already hiring seasonal employees for Christmas
it's 82 degrees here today.
Yeah, exactly. But they're having an employment fair in Denny's driveway. Searching for seasonal employees for the second Christmas Traditions.
I made some PB&Js for him. It was actually a nice afternoon.
The only way to stop this is for George Pickens to go 8-142 this weekend against the Packers. Where was I going with any of this? Denny, Cowboys offense. Does the Lamb injury, a galaxy brain take, maybe hurt Javonte Williams, maybe even more than some of the pass catchers? I just feel like he's kind of living off, they have to be afraid of the Cowboys' deep plays. They're over the middle of the field dominance, maybe giving him some soft fronts to run against. That kind of goes away now. Javonte Williams maybe peaked in fantasy.
I think for now, maybe, but his usage and role in this offense is still really good. Through 3 weeks, he's handled 44 of 61 running back rushes. He's running 60% of the routes. He's targeted on 18% of those routes. I do want to mention here that Dallas is a really fast-paced offense this season. Only the Saints have been faster. Saints are crazy fast, by the way, but
it's working well for them too.
It's on their way to a Super Bowl.
World's fastest 3 and outs.
But anyway, so that tends to generate play volume. That's what a guy like Javonte is going to need while CeeDee Lamb is out, and this. Like you said, this offense becomes more predictable, less explosive. I still think you play Javonte with confidence in 12-team leagues.
So it sounds like, by the way, you just don't think we're going to have passing game volume to fire up the Dontavian Wickses of the world, you guys?
No, 14 teamers, you feel okay?
I'm not a joke starting Wicks in a 14.
I am too, and I'm actually really happy about it.
Me too. I'm
he is a guy. The way he's used, he's the guy who can blow the roof off with 2 targets.
Wicks, Tyquan Thornton, and Jeremy McNichols are wrecking this 14 team.
They are.
I'm not even kidding. They led me to victory last week.
Who's stopping this team?
Who stops this trio of Dontavian Wicks, Jeremy McNichols, Tyquan Thornton? No one does. I had one final thing to say on this game. I don't remember what it was. So it's time to move on to Jaguars 49ers. The Niners are as injured as always, but the books have still installed them as field goal plus home favorites, Kyle, against the road tripping Jaguars. The Jags are 2-1. But this already has the feel of a team in crisis. How worried should we be about an offense that just doesn't look much better than it did last season? In fact, it looks worse in many key areas. very much including Brian Thomas Jr. How worried are we?
Fairly worried, I'll say. So on the Brian Thomas Jr. front, there's sort of two competing factors going on. Playing like garbage.
Yeah,
he is right now, per Next Gen Stats, bottom 3 in yards after the catch over expected and bottom 3 in catch rate over expected. The only player who has a even remotely similar profile, you guessed it, Xavier Legette. He is the only comparable player in terms of the lack of efficiency, both in terms of catching the passes that are thrown his way and generating yak. On the other hand, they're trying to get him the ball. He's 12th in weighted opportunity rating. He's top 20 or top 10 in target share and air yard share. They clearly view him as the focal point of the offense, and that typically is a good sign. I mean, I think he will play better. I truly believe that the player I saw last year is good enough to overcome this bad 3-game stretch. What could go down as the worst 3-game stretch of his career. Mm-hmm. With that being said, he needs to turn around soon. Yeah.
Any career. It's been unwatchable. Trevor Lawrence, but by the way, just he admitted, right, Kyle, he being you, T-Law not good.
I've always said he's mid, and I still think he's just kind of mid.
I did have.
He's not taking a leap, though, I guess. The thing is always like, this year might be the year. And then 2 games in, I'm like, next year might be the year. And another one, it's next year might be the year.
I did have someone online urge me in the year 2025 to be patient with Trevor Lawrence.
Be patient with one of the highest paid players in the history of American sport. But Kyle admits Yadier Molina, Hall of Famer. Trevor Lawrence, never good. Denny, what is Brock Purdy even returning to? That's provided he does return. This is the 49ers. They're acting like he's probably going to start. But for all we'll know, like, well, here's Saturday. He didn't make the team flight, and like the game's at home. Like, what does that even mean? But he's not playing. So many injuries, so many moving parts. What is the outlook for Brock Purdy this week?
Well, he's not returning to Brandon Ayuk, who is quote not close to returning per John Lynch. So we don't know when he's going to come back. But he's returning to a very condensed offense for the 49ers. CMC, Juwan Jennings, and Ricky Pearsall are accounting for about 70% of the targets. It's a little hard to decipher because Jennings missed last week. But, just suffice it to say, those are the only 3 guys that you can start here outside of Purdy if he plays. Pearsall is weirdly dominating air yards here, 50% air yard share. And, like, everything he sees is downfield, and he's good on those.
That was the thesis of the Pearsall play.
Is it? Was it?
Yeah.
I thought he was a scammer, but
no. He was always supposed to be this guy. Yeah.
He was always a chain mover. He is truly moving the ball deep downfield a little more than I thought, but I do think he was always meant to be that intermediate chain moving type.
Well, he's doing that. So you're playing him, and if Jennings plays this week, I think you just throw him right back in there. He's commanding targets at a really high clip.
He probably will just out-target Pearsall again, Denny. Juwan Jennings, Kyle Shanahan does not like Brandon Ayuk, and there just seem to be a perpetual like war of the roses with each other. He really, really loves Juwan Jennings, despite him never being healthy and also constantly demanding more money. So when Juwan Jennings is back, though, he just gets the ball a lot.
He does.
So follow that one closely. Kyle, we need an update. ETN versus Rootin' Tootin' Bashal. What's going on in the Jags backfield?
Yeah, I mean, ETN is still the guy. And last week, Tootin entered the game, or at least entered the week, dealing with a shoulder injury. He actually saw both his snap share and his carry share and his target share, although he's not much of a target earner, fall. He still does get work. At least he got a carry at the goal line and cashed in on it. But it seems like, at least my read of the situation, is that they're going to keep him not on ice, right? But they're going to keep him as a distant number 2 while he nurses the shoulder injury. And that could still result in explosive plays and usable weeks. But he does not have usable weeks levels of volume. You just cannot trust what he's doing right now in terms of how many touches he's going to get, and can you start that for fantasy? I still think he's a very fun upside stash, but this is probably not a spot where I want to play him.
Yeah, we're probably playing someone like Woody Marks over Bashal Tootin right now, I would say. Does that sound accurate? They're in the same range for sure.
Same range I think is fine.
Let me be clear. By the way, RJ Harvey's in that same range, but getting towards droppable. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Visiting Tampa Bay as 3.5-point favorites, the Eagles were finally forced to open up their passing attack after falling behind 26-7 to the Rams last week. Naturally, they just immediately got away with it, and it worked. Like the second they started passing, it worked, Kyle. But it was a one-half blip. That is not what this team wants to do. They might have to do it in Tampa, though.
Yeah, I mean, 3.5-point favorites. And anytime you tell me this Eagles team is favored, I'm like, okay, they want to run the football. I mean, frankly, if you tell me they're projected, which wouldn't really be realistic, but if they're projected to lose by like 5, like, they still run the football. Last week, they were 13th in early down pass rate, but given that they were losing for almost the entire game, that was still, quote, good for a negative 6% pass rate over expected. Even in the game in which they had to get the most improbable of wins at the end of the game, they still, as much as you can possibly do, stuck to their guns on the ground. It just meant that when you adjust for the game script, they passed a little bit more. I think as favorites, you still just assume that you're penciling in 25 attempts, probably.
I can't remember the Bucs better or worse through the air or the ground. I actually wrote this in my article.
They're a major pass funnel.
All right, it's no.
I'm sure the Eagles are reading that.
The Eagles, Nick Sirianni reads my rankings every week. So you were just very flippant about that. Sirianni's a big reader of the rankings on Rotoworld.com. Denny, Sirianni doesn't want to pass. He wants to run. They're not having a lot of success running, kind of weirdly so far. What, if anything, is up with Saquon Barkley? Really, really quiet start as he follows up his Offensive Player of the Year.
9 rushes inside the 10-yard line this season for Saquon Barkley has led to 1 touchdown. He has 3 inside the 5 rushing attempts for -9 yards and 0 touchdowns. So it seems like the old tush push is the option there rather than giving it to Barkley.
Football.
I mean, you know, Saquon is a boom bust player, always has been. He has not boomed yet. He's 53rd among 67 qualifying running backs in yards after contact per rush. Guys, Nick Chubb and DeAndre Swift are better in that category through 3 weeks. I mean, you're just waiting. You know, you're waiting for the long run, right? You're waiting for the one that he sheds 1 tackler, runs 70 yards. All these peripheral numbers go through the roof, and he looks great. But if you don't get that, you're not getting like the consistent like 8-10 yard gains from this guy. So you're starting them. I do feel like the Eagles are going to be forced to throw it more than they want. I'm not saying, they're going to become the Browns, but they're going to have to drop back a little more today.
Hopefully they learn. So we saw lots of people when they fell behind 26-7, like they finally learned their lesson.
I know. Do you know how excited I was? I had Hurts and Brown in a GPP. And when they got down 26-7, I was like, they have no choice. They finally have to do it. And I was confident that they could do it because Jalen Hurts is a good passer and A.J. Brown is a dominant pass catcher. So let's get that trending. Let's
see if they touch the stove again. Kyle, what do we expect from the Bucs target allocation? Mike Evans is out. Chris Godwin's practicing in full. I wouldn't be surprised if he still sits out one more week. But when a guy's practicing in full, you do assume they're going to play. What are you expecting to see from the Bucs pass catchers?
Yeah, as of Thursday, I'm approaching this as if Godwin is playing again. Like, check Rotoworld on Sunday morning to make sure, afternoon, whatever time this game kicks off. But Emeka Egbuka has been really good.
This game's in Oslo, Norway, by the way.
It's on at 2:44 a.m.
And I'm working that one too. Great.
You are. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
Emeka has been, frankly, I was going to say he's been good from both the slot and out wide, but he's actually done most of his damage lined up out wide, which is the opposite of the profile most people thought he would have coming into the NFL. 2.3 yards per route run from out wide is really strong, and 0.6 from the slot is really weak. I think we should probably expect both of those to converge in that we should still rely on his profile to say who he is as a player. But the fact that he's really putting up numbers as a boundary wide receiver makes me just feel that much better about when Chris Godwin comes back. Even if they want to play Chris Godwin in the slot, so be it. Egbuka can still win as a true outside wide receiver. And right now he's splitting his routes slightly favored towards outside, but he is truly moving inside, outside, anywhere they need him to play. It just tells me that no matter what role they play him in, as long as he's out there, he's at least a top 30 fantasy receiver. Because like Denny said, going into last week, he's getting away with it a little bit. Touchdown scoring is a little fluky. He's a good football player, and I think you can pencil him in, especially without Evans and Godwin's first game back. Probably even closer to a top 24. Maybe Godwin comes out and dominates, and next week we're calling him more in that 24 to 30. But I feel good about him this week.
This next one here is a media story, and I reject the framing of the New York Giants quarterback situation where people are saying the New York Giants decided to go to Jaxson Dart. No. This decision was made for them. Kyle Dvorchak. Like, if you watch the game Sunday night, the decision was made in real time. The Russell Wilson era ended on live television. It ended on NBC and Peacock. In fact, the Giants did not have a choice. Jaxson Dart certainly makes them more interesting. Does that include in fantasy football? I think people just need to remember it might feel like it couldn't get worse than it did under us. It absolutely could, but is it at least more interesting?
You framed it very well on the Tuesday podcast where I thought Jaxson Dart was a very good prospect. I thought he should have gone earlier, and I thought he should have at least been considered a universal lock to be a first round pick. Does end up going in the first round, but like you mentioned on the Tuesday podcast, going in the 20s is not a clear vote of confidence. It's probably a vote of upside, which he has in spades. In his final season in college football, he was graded as PFF's number 20 deep passer, which is good, but he did it on the highest volume of deep passing in college football, which is to say he was not discerning with how often and when he was throwing deep. He was chucking it deep all the time. He was also PFF's number 1 graded intermediate passer. He led the country in passing yards on deep throws, passing touchdowns on deep throws. And that is the one appeal we had in Russell Wilson's game, was that he was chucking it early and often. He had one of the highest ADOTs in the league, and he was throwing as often as any quarterback, partially just because the Giants kept losing games. I think we can at least get a similar style of football out of Dart. Pat, you do make a good point that, like, if he came out and played like Cam Ward, who was drafted 20 some odd picks ahead of him and universally considered a better prospect, it would be tragic for Malik Neighbors and for Wan'Dale Robinson. Cam Ward is just not playing well enough to support fantasy quarterbacks or fantasy wide receivers, and he was clearly the better prospect. So there is a unmatched floor here where it can get worse. A lot of rookies struggle early on, but the ceiling also does exceed what we saw from Russell Wilson.
Where the floor could always go lower. There just was not a ceiling with Russell Wilson, despite what week 2 against the Cowboys might lead you to believe. Something that had to be done. But this is a guy, I mean, the Ole Miss offense, like, you think you've seen fraudulent college offenses. Like, the Ole Miss offense is just like almost air. Like, it's not real. Like, it's so simplistic and fake. Yes, it's so simplistic and fake. One read. We'll see what actually happens. Jaxson Dart, after saying all that, I feel better about him delivering the ball to Malik Neighbors than I did Russell Wilson, though, Denny. But Denny, we're not here to talk about Malik Neighbors and Russell Wilson. We already talked about that a lot, by the way, on Tuesday, but we're going to hear even more on that. An update on how for real the Chargers' passing game transformation has been. What's up with Ladd McConkey? The fantasy hive mind is finally beginning to get a little restless as Ladd continues to fight for targets with Keenan Allen and lose out on big plays to Quentin Johnston.
Real quick on Dart, the Chargers defense plays a lot of too high, makes you dink and dunk. I think it shapes up as a really bad spot for Mr. Dart this week, but I have hope for the long run. Yeah, so it's somewhat split up evenly in some ways between McConkey, Keenan Allen, and Quentin Johnston, but Johnston has a defined role as the air yards eater downfield guy.
Defined role is the guy who does all the cool stuff and scores all the touchdowns.
Right. Keenan Allen has a defined role as the bailout option and the main intermediate guy for Justin Herbert. I cannot identify, after looking powerfully into the metrics, I don't know what Ladd McConkey's role in this offense is. He's third in air yards at 18%. He's targeted on just 17% of his routes. Last year, that was 24%. That's a really weird drop to see for what we thought was an ascending wide receiver headed into his second season. I think you're still starting him in 12-team leagues. I do think that Keenan Allen is just a problem for him. I think that he's just taking up so many of those intermediate targets that McConkey was seeing, especially late in the season when he really emerged. Those have kind of vanished.
I think you did a really good job laying it out. Ladd McConkey, he did not have competition in really any one area of his game last year. Now he has competition in all the meaningful areas. And I would just not – I know he's popping in the efficiency metrics. He's obviously going to spike some weeks, but I would just not take it as an article of faith that he gets back to last season's set and forget top 15 or 16 wide receiver. I don't really see the path to that right now. Famous last words when it's a good player, but he's got competition he just did not have last year.
I have a note here real quick. Yeah. The Giants have given up more targets and more yards to slot receivers than any team in the NFL. It's not a particularly close race. They also play man at one of the higher rates. Ladd leads the team in yards per out run against man, leads in PFF receiving grade against man, and he is their primary slot receiver, about 63% of the routes from the slot. I kind of agree that Ladd is really good in a lot of facets, but QJ is a really good deep threat, and Keenan Allen is a good underneath guy. And when you're not clearly better than anyone at any of those roles, it is becoming a problem for him. I do think this week will be a very stark exception to that problem.
Well, and it kind of sounds like a now or never week, Kyle, where if it comes out this week with another quiet stat line, that would be very, very concerning.
I wanted to mention just briefly, if Will Dissly is out, we have a sicko tight end play to end all sicko tight end plays. It's Rondé Gadsden, the second, targeted on almost half of his routes last week. Didn't run a lot of routes, but really, seems to be a target commander. He was in college. So just keep an eye on Dissly. If he's out, I think you can start Gadsden if you are just really hard up at tight end.
Jim Harbaugh talked him up too right after.
I was going to say Gadsden got steamed all summer by fantasy bros. Jim Harbaugh unveiled this week fantasy in his bio.
Oh,
He
wow.
loves Gadsden.
One of
Talking
us.
Gadsden. So, Kyle, we just talked about all the target competition that Ladd McConkey has. Omarion Hampton had touch competition, Najee Harris. His season's over. What is the outlook for Omarion Hampton 2.0?
I feel like the floor at this point is set at what Kyron Williams is doing, which is to say that maybe he doesn't see every single touch, although in week 1, that's basically what happened. They had the opportunity to say, Najee's not ready, but we're going to play Kamani Vidal or we're going to play someone else. And they just chose not to do that. Maybe they've lost faith in Hampton, but I kind of doubt that's the case after just a few weeks. So at a minimum, he's getting the vast majority of the work, and maybe he never looks better, right? But Kyron Williams is not a special player. The special trait he has is gets all the touches. That does seem like what's going to happen with Hampton. He was RB16 in expected fantasy points last week. Maybe he never outproduces that sort of stable RB2 role, but I think you at least have to call him a high-end RB2 based on the role, and maybe he just does progress. Maybe the game slows down for him a bit, and he starts hitting the home runs that he did with a reasonably high clip in college on an extreme workload. One important note, he hit 6 targets last week. I think that was like doubled his season total of targets. Not sure how stable that is, but just the fact that they were at least modestly interested in throwing him the football, that will really help pad out some of the quieter rushing games.
Denny, how high is too high for Cam Scadaboo on the other side of the ball? He had already taken over this Giants backfield. Now Tyrone Tracy's out multiple weeks. Got him as a pretty high-end RB2 right now. Am I crazy? How high is too high?
You are not crazy. You are perfectly normal.
That's good.
I think Scadaboo, I think, takes a little bit of a hit with Russell Wilson's benching because, like I said on the Tuesday show, I kind of see Jaxson Dart as a guy who's not going to exactly check it down as much, although I'm not discounting that completely. He's not going to be Justin Fields in that he never throws to running backs, but it could be a little bit of a hit, but he's going to see a lot of the routes. And we have to remember the Chargers are going to be leading this game. I mean, the Giants are going to be chasing points probably throughout this game. That should be, provide some PPR upside for Scadaboo. So even if he only sees 8 rushes, I think he can still get there for PPR purposes.
He'll see more than 8 rushes too, I think. Thank God.
Yeah, I mean,
but the Giants, by the way, all in on the West Coast team coming to the East Coast. That's their path to victory. The 1 p.m. Eastern game.
That,
for Justin Herbert.
I hadn't considered that. The Chargers will be very sleepy.
That is their path to victory. Sleepy Justin. The Raiders have been mostly atrocious, but still not bad enough somehow to find themselves as home underdogs against the Bears, Kyle. They're 1.5-point favorites. Caleb Williams has been stacking stones. I don't really quite know what I meant when I wrote that. How are we feeling?
You almost called him Kyler.
How are we feeling heading into a road matchup that could go either way? The Raiders defense hasn't been amazing. It hasn't been awful. It also has not really been that imposing of a slate that they've faced. How are we feeling about Caleb?
Yeah, to me, I still think what we saw from Caleb last week was, of course, he flashed the highest of highs. I mean, it was the funniest flea flicker ever. I think it was DeAndre Swift who threw the pitch back. Dude, why did he throw it like a shanked punt? That thing hung in the air forever. Yeah. And Caleb with the tightest throwing motion just flicks it on a rope. Beautiful. But on the season, he's still graded by PFF as one of the least accurate passers. He's graded really poorly under pressure. The good news is the Raiders, like you said, just not a really imposing defense. They're 27th in EPA per play. Like I said, Caleb really poor under pressure, one of PFF's worst graded quarterbacks. Raiders only generated pressure at the 20th highest rate. So they're a below average defense, below average at generating pressure. And teams have targeted the Raiders through the air constantly this year. They faced the second highest pass rate over expected from their opponents. So to me, this is another spot where I don't think it's as good of a spot as Caleb was in last week, but it's another spot where he's very startable. And this is coming from certainly what listeners would call a Caleb hater.
And it's a really important game for Caleb where he's not going to get a better matchup than he had with the Cowboys at home in week 3. It's always good when you do well in the spots where you're expected to do well.
Yeah.
But the expectations are just a little less certain for this game. Be a great spot for him to show something, actually do well, Denny.
Can I just say one thing about that flea flicker? I saw a mic'd up clip of DeAndre Swift apologizing to Caleb Williams. He was like, "Sorry, dude. Like, I don't know."
It's such a funny bad pitch. It's
So
a
I
little
actually-
footnote, but man, what a bad pitch.
I
Go ahead,
studied the
sorry.
film. Oh, first of all, Caleb goes, "What are you talking about?" Like he didn't even acknowledge it. I studied the film. Caleb Swift got bumped. He got bumped from behind, and the ball
makes
just
sense.
kind of came out. So
Got
that's what happened. If folks want to know.
So Swift can't even do a flea flicker correctly. Is what you're really trying to say, even though he was bumped. Denny, over update for Ashton Genty. How over is it right now? Is it beginning? Is it actually beginning?
I'm afraid, to speak, very convincingly here because
That's never gotten in trouble before.
folks don't want to hear. Folks don't want to hear it's over for a guy entering his fourth game. But here's the takeaway. I'm going to give you some numbers and everything. The takeaway is you have no choice but to play him this week. Okay.
Denny's getting kind of blurry as he says you have to play Ashton Genty.
No, am I really?
Yeah. Sorry.
All right. So the Raiders tried to be run heavy in week 3 against Washington. They were 14% below their expected pass rate, by far the run heaviest approach of that week. So they're trying to make Genty a thing. Okay. PFF grades the Raiders as 22nd in run blocking. They're averaging about 1 yard before contact per rush, which is the 5th lowest rate in the league. How I don't know how it's not the worst, but it's not.
Genty individually is the worst in yards before contact, which is maybe a little bit of a Genty vision stat, but it also has to be attributed to the line to some degree.
But here's the thing. So, okay, you have a Raiders offensive line that's not creating space for Genty. Okay, that everybody understands that going in, right? But the Bears are allowing the highest rate of rush yards before contact and the 4th highest rushing success rate. So if Genty's ever going to kind of get there just based on rushing, he could do it here against the Bears. But that assumes neutral game script, and I kind of feel like there might not be a lot of that to go around for the Raiders this week.
Pete Carroll should look into having a good offensive line, literally one time ever.
I mean, I don't want to get bogged down with the Genty thing. I will say, when you have a crappy offensive line and you spend a top 5 or 6 pick, whatever it was, on a running back, that's bad team building.
Is this bad team building? Kyle, is it bad fantasy team building to add Trey Tucker? His 145.3 in week 3 has all the hallmarks of an outlier, but he also has all the hallmarks of the kind of receiver that Geno Smith likes to throw to. What do we tell fantasy players after that just blow up spot from Trey Tucker last Sunday?
Former Rotoworld Hayden Winks called him this year's, or said maybe. I don't want to put words in the mouth. I think said he could be this year's Darnell Mooney, which that clicked with me perfectly. That is probably exactly who he is, in the sense of he runs nearly every route for his team. I mean, if he does this, he will probably finish the year with maybe the highest route rate on a team that, as Denny said, they toyed with trying to be a run first team last week. Didn't really have any success with it. I think they're just going to be forced to throw. And Geno's an aggressive quarterback. That works out, like you said, quite well for Trey Tucker. A 20% target share, too, is pretty reasonable for a guy who's a intermediate to deep threat. That's a good enough role that he's at least a flex player. I do think it'll be a frustrating weekly decision to start or sit him. You'll probably get it wrong a lot, but I think it's at least one worth considering.
It's the classic situation where don't outsmart yourself and be like, 145.3, that can never happen again. I'm just going to totally pretend this didn't happen.
No, it's not that easy.
Yeah, you have to understand, obviously that's not happening again. But just because it was fluky doesn't mean it was an eclipse. Probably going to do something again. So just keep that in mind, Trey Tucker. Denny, quickly, Rome Odunze wide receiver 1 update in fantasy.
He is. 27%.
Just don't let him say anything else because he is, yeah.
27% targets, 42% of the air yards being targeted on 25% of his routes. These are all good rates. They're
really
not
really good rates.
But they're not like Malik Neighbors rates, but it's okay. That's okay.
Give it time. The Bills, they're winning, but they're not doing anything fun, Denny.
No,
anything at all. Of course, they don't. They're making they're breaking the EPA machine, of course. And not doing anything fun will undoubtedly remain the goal, as they are overwhelming home favorites against the Saints. Now, who do we even want to start beyond Josh Allen and James Cook in this Bills offense for a game, where they have such a high implied team total?
Right.
I feel like I don't even want to play anyone other than Allen and Cook.
And so I understand the fantasy in bio mindset here, which is the Bills have an implied total 60, right? But I can't play anybody. It's going to be a blowout for 3 quarters. guys, they got to get the points somehow, right? I mean, they're going to score a lot of
Spencer
points.
Rattler pick 6. Spencer Rattler fumble 6. Alvin Kamara just gives up on a play, and it's actually a drop pass, but they call it a fumble.
Man, oh my God! I think you just told the future. That actually, I spent a crazy amount of fab on the Bills defense this week. I just want everyone to know that. Crazy. If my guy Rattler goes off, I'll never be the same. So anyway, the Saints.
I don't think you have to worry about that. If I'm being honest, you'll be all right.
I know it's almost shuck season.
It is almost shuck season. Yeah, I mean, we're all trying to find the 2 people who told you that. I'm sorry.
You're never wrong, only early. But,
never once been wrong.
Saints are giving up a lot of downfield completions. Sorry, I almost dropped my phone. That was that reaction. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Keon Coleman, maybe Josh Palmer you can throw in there. Maybe they can get there. I do think that, I know we disagree here, but I feel like Dalton Kincaid can be started in 12-team leagues here.
I think
I've lost faith in Shakir, so I've really lost faith. And it's like, what do you even do? Like, what's the point of it? Like, even Coleman, I'm like, he's going to score some touchdowns. I feel like Khalil Shakir is like, all right, you're just like a guy. You're kind of like the worst Lad McConkey. Really, you don't have the primary role in anything.
I am afraid that I overestimated Shakir's.
I did too. I was really into Shakir this summer. But Kyle, lots of best ball bros were into Rashid Shaheed. Are we still starting him in 12-team redraft fantasy?
Yeah, I'd say probably not if you can avoid it. 17% target share, which is surprisingly low given that he has an ADOT of 11, which is kind of a new role for him. At least it's the least deep threat exclusive role he's had, but he hasn't been able to convert working more shallow to intermediate stuff into earning a higher volume of targets. Like 17% isn't terrible. And as Denny pointed out earlier, the team is playing at a breakneck pace. And of course, they're losing every game, so they throw at a breakneck pace. I still think Rashid Shaheed is playable, but Chris Olave in terms of overall volume is just eating his lunch right now. There's just not really room for Juwan to get there and Chris Olave to get there and then a third player to get there. And Rashid Shaheed has just been the odd man out.
He's got to hit a big play this week. This is the time to do it. The time to have any hope in fantasy going forward. We need the big Shaheed play this week. Denny, Alvin Kamara check in. The usage still looks good, but the end result has not been good and just this really dismal offense.
I mean, he's dominating like the rushing opportunities
utterly so
for the Saints, but 8% target share. He's being targeted on 12% of his routes.
I didn't realize that it was that bad, to be honest.
Like, yikes. The whole thesis of the play was that, okay, the Saints will stink and they're going to throw it a bunch. And so Kamara will just benefit from that. But that's really not happening. It's Juwan Johnson and it's Chris Olave benefiting most from that. Some copium on Kamara if like you're desperate to play him or like you just really have to this week. The Bills are allowing the 5th highest rush EPA this season. I don't know. There you go. Good luck. Good luck with that.
It did not help for Alvin Kamara. They finally got someone who hasn't been on Sean Payton's payroll for 25 years to call the plays. He's like, how about we just don't target the running back every other play?
Yeah, you're right.
Kellen Moore has decided not to target the running back every other play. 2-1 after a convincing win over the Ravens. The Ravens could have won that game. I probably overstated that a little bit. The Lions find themselves as 10-point home favorites against a Browns team that just upset the Packers, Denny. We usually love Detroit at home, but what, if anything, is giving us pause in this matchup? One of the anythings, of course, is that the Browns defense still looks very legit.
The Browns defense is elite, and it's keeping game script somewhat manageable so that the Browns don't have to go crazy with the pass and they can kind of keep it on the ground with Judkins and whatever. I will say, I think the Lions will just stomp all over them. The Browns are, I will say, the Browns are way better against the run than they are against the pass this season. So I don't think that you automatically throw in like David Montgomery into every lineup this week. Because he's not going to get there through the air. Gibbs can do that, and then obviously you have a terrible matchup. Let's just be clear about that.
Demont, he busted all those big runs against the Ravens. He does appear like kind of hard capped in the 10 to 12 carry range. Where had 3 pretty different game flows for the Lions, and he's consistently been the short end of the carries stick, and it seems like they want to keep him in that zone. And so, yeah, what you got in week 3, you don't need me to tell you.
Well,
this.
and the Ravens, the Ravens let him score a 25-yard touchdown.
They did. Let me be clear. They let him score. I didn't just but how Jame over is it? Just answer it now.
It's over. I mean, the dream is over.
Go off, King. Speak your truth, brother.
It's not. It's
Jared
not,
Goff averaging 7 air yards per attempt. That ranks 23rd. He has just 7 attempts of over 20 air yards this year. Like
all to JMO? No, probably. I don't think they are.
Mostly to JMO, but good grief. I was told this would be fun. Jameson Williams is running all the routes. And like I said on Tuesday's show, it is not good when your only opportunities ever are on scripted first drive plays. And that's what we saw from JMO.
That's what we saw last week. All I'll say is people forgot. I'll keep saying it. People forgot this kind of player existed in fantasy. If you are starting JMO, stay in line. You will eventually.
A bunch of people drafted in the 5th round are like, man, I wish I forgot this player existed because
Yeah.
I took a lot of them.
He's going to get home. Just believe me. He's going to get home. Kyle, which Browns can we actually even start right now? Quinshon Judkins, we're loving it, but the game flow is going to probably be very, very bad. He does not catch many passes in Detroit Motor City.
I think the fact that Quinshon Judkins sees at this point, I mean, it's 2 games into his career and he sees nearly every single carry of his backfield means that even as massive underdogs, you still likely should be starting him. There will be spots where you can afford not to, but guys who get every touch in their backfield do not grow on trees. There are very few of them, even if it's a pretty bad spot just by game script measure. In terms of the pass catchers, Jerry Jeudy, 19% target share is pretty meh, but 40% of the air yards when they want to try and move the chains, he is the guy they go to. It's going to be pretty frustrating to start Jerry Jeudy because you're just relying on him being out there, earning some percentage of the targets.
Always worked before.
It'll work again at some point.
It doesn't work anymore.
It'll work again at some point. When you see 40% of your team's air yards and your team is just forced to throw 45 times a game, he will hit again. Yeah. But he's not dominating targets by any stretch of the imagination. Part of that is because both tight ends, I think, are viable starts, but neither is an elite option. Like Harold Fannin clearly behind David Njoku playing this queen chess piece role, which is good enough for 4 or 5 targets a game, but it's enough to limit him from ever, maybe not, but for right now, it looks like he'll never hit that 8 or 9 mark. On the other side, David Njoku, just by measure of Harold Fannin being such a target commander when he's out there, I think is also hurt by this tight end. It's not even tight end by committee. They play completely different roles. They do operate in a similar fashion in terms of where they earn their targets. Both of them are probably top 15-ish options, but neither might be a top 10 option. Almost certainly neither is.
They've fallen out of the top 12. And I think with the tight ends, you're just we're on to Dylan Gabriel. Just like, not even that we want to see Dylan Gabriel start, but it's that this iteration of the Browns offense is just about dead. Like, it's kind of foolish to even make plans. Like, we'll just see what happens with the next quarterback. Maybe it'll be better. Maybe it'll be worse. Jerry Jeudy, by the way, is like when there's a hack in a game and all of a sudden it gets patched. Like, what the? This always worked. Like, this is a good example. This is absurd. This has worked for years.
Right.
They finally patched after long last the Jerry Jeudy hack. Like, he used to always be able to score from outside the box at a 42-degree angle on FIFA. We need to undo the Jerry Jeudy patch.
I would like that, yeah.
What game are we on here? Denny, the Cincinnati Bengals were as bad as it gets in their first game without Joe Burrow. Could it possibly get any worse on the road against the Broncos? Probably not. And how do we feel about starting Chase Brown right now? A guy where talking about the thesis of the play was always, listen, he's not good, but he gets every touch in one of the league's best offensive environments. Now it's one of the league's worst offensive environments. Just temperature check on this entire Bengals endeavor.
Bengals last week against the Vikings, 8% below their expected pass rate. The offense ran super slow, bottom 3 rate. That's really bleak. The fact that they tried to be run heavy is really bad. Chase Brown, tons of touches. He's seeing all the opportunity in this backfield. Like Kamara, the thesis was it doesn't matter. He's going to see 8 targets a game, so who cares? That hasn't, come to fruition. And now he's playing a Broncos defense where Broncos opponents have averaged 3.5 running back targets per game this season, second lowest rate in the league. So I feel like Chase Brown is a guy you're not playing him in 10 teams. Okay. I feel like you have somebody better. You should have somebody better.
You better have drafted Cam Scatterbo because he's the type of player who is
You're
already leapfrogged.
Scatterbo or Judkins maybe, but he's still just outside the top 24 because touches will still be there. Samaje Perine injured his thumb. Like he might play this week.
I know.
But
It's an awful spot for everybody in this offense. I mean, I guess you're just hoping that they throw more, but like the fact that they were slow and run heavy last week, relatively run heavy, is not good.
Yeah, it was as bad as it gets. Hopefully it cannot get any worse. Good defense, the Broncos. The Vikings were a great defense as well. We're just going to see what happens. Kyle, is this kind of a speak now or forever hold your peace spot for Bo Nix? And are we starting any Broncos pass catchers not named Cortland Sutton? Bo Nix is one of the biggest duds of the fantasy season so far through 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think the way you framed it is correct. That like, if you're not going to get home against the Bengals, when are you going to get home? Maybe with the only caveat that if he's efficient on low volume, they could kill the Bengals. If he's efficient on low volume, you just sort of give it a pass and say reevaluate next week. The Bengals have the 6th lowest pressure rates. There's going to be clean pockets for days for Bo Nix. They're a middle of the pack team in EPA per play per drop back allowed. Broncos elite team total 25.75 points. That is higher than both participants of the Ravens-Chiefs game. So to me, outside of the idea that volume just might not be on his side, you do really need to see something from Bo Nix here. Like you said, Cortland Sutton running all the routes, earning a pretty healthy target clip. I will note Troy Franklin, who total bust last week, ran almost every single route, which again is something that Sean Payton has refused to do with his wide receiver 2 since joining the Broncos. The fact that he does clearly seem to value Troy Franklin as you play every snap, you're our clear number 2 receiver, that at least feels comforting because that's not something he's done with the team before.
The Bank Examiner absolutely loves it when you bring up Troy Franklin's route rating. They think that's really great. They take a lot of pity on him.
Trick to summon the Bank Examiner.
Honest spit take.
Denny, Broncos backfield, question mark. RJ Harvey, talk about big busts.
Yeah, it's so over. It's insane. Yeah, so Denver has the 3rd highest rate of rush yards before contact. They're playing a Bengals defense giving up the 5th highest rate of rush yards before contact. Here's what I could see. Dobbins definitely getting there. And then RJ Harvey fraudulently getting there because he has a 50-yard run or something like that. Broncos are 7.5-point favorites. Dobbins leads the backfield when carries 41-13 over Harvey through 3 games. I feel like Dobbins is like a kind of a must play, like
very good spot.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's ahead of Chase Brown, for instance.
That's right. There you go. Perfect.
That's what I'm talking about. Like if you have Chase Brown and Dobbins, and you're like, oh god, it's not even a choice. You're just putting Dobbins.
Yeah. That's grim but true. The Atlanta Falcons have been bad enough, guys. The reporters have begun to ask Raheem Morris about the Kirk Cousins option. Like, never a good sign when they're bringing. If they're bringing up Kirk, it needs to be about where are you trading him, not could he play, coach. For now, Raheem is saying still Penix's team, Kyle. But do we still support Penix under center if we are rolling out Drake London, say, who has been, I think, 5 catches every week, but no ceiling whatsoever? Just how do we feel about Penix? How do we feel about London?
Yeah, Raheem Morris maybe went a little overboard with emphasizing that Penix was the starter. He's like, you guys remember last year, we benched Kirk Cousins. He got benched for a reason. I was like, all right, buddy, easy. We get it. it.
All right.
You didn't have to bury Kirk Cousins to support Michael Penix.
No, let me be clear. If you can bury Kirk Cousins, do it.
You got to take those opportunities. You got to hit the layups when you got them.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I will say the Drake London target share, albeit I think it could be higher in the way that like Garrett Wilson can push beyond a 30% target share, which at that point, there is almost no poor quarterback play or game script which can stop you. You've got Drake London more in the 25-26% range, which is still elite. And it still means you are starting him no matter what, no matter who is under center, as if that's a controversy right now, no matter the game script. But man, Penix has played quite poorly. This is in his press conference. He says, I got to throw the ball to the wide open receivers when they're open. True to his word, he has been terrible when his receivers have been open. He has the 3rd lowest accurate throw rate when PFF charts his wide receivers as open. They have only thrown the Falcons to the middle of the field on 8% of their passes. That is the lowest rate by 4%. The difference between them and team number 31 is the same as the difference between team number 31 and 24. Penix is just not, maybe this is offensive design, right? Penix is just not seeing the entirety of the field. In fact, it's missing the money zone right down the middle. So I still think this is all sort of, I don't say noise, right? But it's all describing how bad the passing attack is. It is not an excuse not to play Drake London.
So it's kind of like they're saying when they show like a baseball hitter's heat map and like, kind of weird that it's dark blue right in the middle. I feel like should hit those
exactly
fastballs down the middle. Denny, what is the state of the Commanders' offense? Jaden Daniels getting in limited practices. Signs seem to be pointing towards him coming back this week, but then again, they're playing a really downtrodden Falcons team. They got away with it last week. I could see them pushing the envelope, maybe holding him out another week again if he's not particularly close to healthy. Terry McLaurin appears like he's going to be out. The backfield, JCM, missed practice. Then they said it was fine. State of the Commanders, can we treat any of these running backs as flex plays?
If I could just backtrack real quick, I just want to note that the offensive coordinator for the Falcons, Zach Robinson, I can't remember if he's moving from the field to the box or from the box to the field, but whatever it is,
I believe they fired their wide receivers coach too.
They did.
That's the first sign that something is deeply, deeply wrong here. So
that's a really, really good poll.
I don't think the Falcons are going to be much better going forward. Anyway, here's what the backfield for Washington looked like last week. Really clear. Chris Rodriguez, 11 carries. JCM, 8 carries. Jeremy McNichols, 4 carries. So, that's tough to decipher. Commanders had 38% neutral pass rate in week 3, 3% below their expected pass rate. Super run heavy, in other words, with Mariota under center. I kind of think Mariota will start here again because they don't want to rush Jaden Daniels back.
Denny, Adam points out through the line, pretty small in favor of the Commanders, probably an indication lack of faith in Daniels playing on Sunday.
There's also, I just want to mention this as someone who lives in the Washington area. There's collective trauma around rushing back a franchise quarterback. I hear it every time I'm at a gathering of any size. People mention, well, if we just wouldn't have rushed back RG3, it would have been a legend.
Or if the field had been in any way playable.
Yeah.
And by gathering of any size, you mean at the bus stop with that Ravens fan kid. You guys talk about that all the time.
That Ravens fan is way too young to remember RG3. But so I think they're going to be careful with him. And as long as Mariota's under center for these guys, they're going to be super run heavy. I don't know. Like, I guess you can play JCM, but man, I don't feel great about it.
Problem with JCM is this seems like doesn't matter who else is healthy, who else is playing. They have a set role in mind. They want to play 33% of snaps. They want him to get like 6 to 10 carries depending on the game flow, and they're just not going to break him out of that box right now. That is the concern with JCM. Low end, low ceiling flex. The Miami Dolphins looked a little bit better with each passing week, you guys, but it still has not been good enough. Denny Carter, can we be starting role players? I'm calling Jalen Waddle a role player because I just think that's what he is at this point. Can we start role players like Jalen Waddle and Ollie Gordon the second right now?
Just quick on Jalen Waddle, 17% target share. He's been targeted on 20% of his routes. That's well below Devon Achane and Tyreek Hill. I feel like Hill and Achane have separated themselves as like the two clear first options for Tua. Jalen Waddle, I should say, is behind them. As for the backfield, interestingly, Gordon saw 9 carries last week to 12 carries for Achane. Gordon averaged over 4 yards after contact per rush. That was in line with what he did in the preseason. Very efficient. I will say that Achane still ran all the routes out of the backfield, and that's what we care about. So the fact that Achane might be limited to like 12 to 15 rushes doesn't bother me too much. And I don't think you can play Ollie Gordon in a 12-team league.
No, probably not. The carries floor is not high enough.
No.
Agree with that assessment. He's still, just by virtue of how few people are getting touches right now, he cracks the top 50 at running back, but it's more like, man, I got to play Ollie Gordon. It's not like, man, I get to play Ollie Gordon.
And also, I mean, the Dolphins are so bad, like the game script could get wonky here,
It can get wonky against anybody. And Kyle, we don't know who the Jets quarterback is going to be. We think it's going to be Justin Fields. He has resumed practicing after missing last week with the concussion. Usually with the concussion, if you're on the practice field, you will be out there on Sunday. So state of the Jets offense right now through 3 really weird games, quarterback drama. There's no flow, no consistency. What do we say about the Jets heading into a winnable game in Miami?
I don't want to be a hater, but like this is Denny. Can you pretend that Denny is saying this? Because I'm not confident in this take. Denny would say it very confidently. Do we think, I guess I can't even say it. I'm asking this question. People are asking, do we think Tyrod Taylor is a better quarterback for Garrett Wilson specifically?
Oh, yeah.
Because
it's not even hot. Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Yes, man. Of course he is.
The problem is, even though it's Fields who's gotten hurt, we all know Tyrod Taylor, if he ever actually became a starter, would last maybe 2 quarters. And then Fields is right back in.
It wouldn't be great. Right now, Fields ranks 31st out of 36 qualified quarterbacks in completion percent over expected. Tyrod Taylor is 9th in the aforementioned accurate throw rate to receivers. Fields is dead last in the NFL. Tyrod is 4th. I think part of that is just Tyrod takes the easy stuff. And when you have a wide receiver who sees 40% of the targets, the easy stuff means a lot of PPR points for that guy. The Jets were also surprisingly I don't want to say run first, but balanced to slightly pass, or I meant to say pass first, balanced to slightly pass tilted team in Tyrod's start, a 3% pass rate over expected. They were minus 15% in the previous 2 games. So I think we'll get a return to more rushing volume and a little less passing accuracy. That does not mean to bench Garrett Wilson. It just means that it's probably going to go back to a little bit of a frustrating start in that he really does look like he could be a top 5, a top 10 fantasy wide receiver. And he's much closer to that, like wide receiver 1 borderline.
That's a good layout. Good time to take a short break. We'll be right back after this. It's a showdown of 2 of the best teams in the country on Saturday night. Number 6, Oregon. Number 3, Penn State. Can the Ducks fly into Happy Valley and come out with a victory? Coverage of the matchup begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. As a Mizzou fan, by the way, we thank Penn State for their quarterback, Bo Nix, Heisman dark horse. You heard it here first. Everyone's talking about Ahmad Hardy as the Heisman dark horse. It could be Bo, too. Mizzou, we're coming for the playoff. Kyle, you're a longtime Drake May booster. Are the past 2 weeks what we have been needing to see, and can he sustain it heading into this matchup against the Panthers defense that has actually been pretty good through 3 games so far?
Last week, I said that in a bunch of key metrics, he was specifically 8th. It was funny that they just all lined up very conveniently for him to be 8th. He enters week 4, 8th again in EPA per play. He dropped, in PFF passing grade. He rose in completion percent over expected. If you watch the game, this would be very obvious because the completion percent portion of these stats is, are you throwing accurate passes? He's throwing dimes. That's what he does. PFF will be punishing him for loving to take sacks. He got that sack taking gene. He just wants to sit back there and bomb it. And it is pretty fun. And he's also a great runner. It was his best rushing yardage game last week. And that makes him, I think, a very clear QB1. It also means they're going to have some games where they struggle specifically because of his propensity for taking sacks. So fantasy, of course, you're starting him. Real life, I still think there was one very obvious kink in his game he has to work out. Maybe he never does. I do think it's something that could just be endemic to his style of play.
Denny, tell us what to do with the Patriots backfield. We don't know what to do.
It's just so drama filled at this point. Mike Vrabel is torturing us with his quotes about Ramondre Stevenson's fumbles. And if one day he says, I have a bunch of quotes, I'm just not going to read them. Basically, I'll give you the Cliff's notes. One day he says it's all Ramondre's fault. And then the next day he says it's not at all his fault. We have to do a better job of protecting him and making sure he doesn't get the ball stripped from him. Okay. He was benched last week for fumbling twice. Then TreVeyon Henderson led the team both in pass routes and in carries. He had 11 carries to 7 for Antonio Gibson, only 4 for Stevenson. But, I said TreVeyon Henderson led in routes, but he only ran around 19 of 39 dropbacks. So, that's not fantastic by any means. It's if you think that Stevenson's going to get another crack here to be the lead back, then I don't think you can play TreVeyon. If you think that Stevenson is going to be in the doghouse, then maybe TreVeyon becomes viable, but certainly he's not going to dominate. It's an ugly, ugly situation because Antonio Gibson is going to be involved in some way, in some capacity, no matter what they do with Stevenson.
It was just such a
mistake. They
misstep.
did also bench Gibson after he committed the team's 3rd of 4 fumbles, one of which Drake May also gave up. The aforementioned sack taking did that to him. It was a very dominant TreVeyon Henderson run to close out the 4th quarter after Gibson was also benched. But I agree with Denny. This is like high school girl drama levels of, oh, this is going to happen. Oh, this is going to happen. We love TreVeyon. We hate TreVeyon. Like I'm so over it. I don't know what to do. That's the answer. I don't.
Well, and Travion, it was just a really missed opportunity last week. He could have maybe ended the debate, and he did not come close to doing it. The Panthers, by the way, you're starting Chuba Hubbard. You're hopefully starting Tedero McMillan. Missed practice on Wednesday, back on Thursday. Says he's going to play. Bryce Asante, it was totally over because it never even began. All right, let me be clear. It never began. The NFL has decided that our brothers and sisters in Ireland must be treated to Carson Wentz versus Aaron Rodgers, Denny Carter. The Irish people demanded it. They have finally received it. With the Steelers side, is there a third fantasy viable guy beyond Jalen Warren and DK Metcalf?
No. The Vikings are really good at defending the short areas in the passing game, and that's all Aaron Rodgers is doing this year. So it's a bad matchup, right? Like truly, truly awful. In fact, it's so bad that I would think twice about starting Aaron Rodgers like in Superflex. Like I feel like you might be able to get away with that this week. We saw what they did to Jake Browning last week. I'm not comparing.
Beautiful Jake. They massacred our Jake.
Our poor boy Jake, who did nothing wrong. But it's a bad matchup. And don't get fooled by the touchdown to what's his name, the wide receiver 2 for Pittsburgh.
DK Metcalf.
He's the de facto one. Calvin Austin. Don't get fooled by Austin. But yeah, I think you're just starting Warren. You're starting Metcalf, who has a bad profile, by the way. Not good at all.
Real bad.
Yeah, it's ugly. It's going to be ugly.
In Dublin, Ireland, the Irish people.
Oh, by the way, the Vikings. There was a story on ESPN. The Vikings that said, actually, we're glad we have to go overseas for 2 weeks. It was very funny.
We absolutely love to take a 2-game European road trip before it's even October. It's just how football was meant to be played. Kyle, we did not get to see the real Vikings against the Bengals last week. How do we feel about Carson Wentz and company in this one? Steelers defense is kind of limping, more against the run. It's a fine unit. It's going to be a more competitive game, we think, than we saw against the Bengals. What do we expect from kind of the first quote-unquote real Carson Wentz game environment here?
Like you said, I don't want to read too much into like how the team played last week on offense, like the stylistic trends, because it just was not it will be the most hilarious beatdown of the season, especially in terms of not the exact point differential, but the fashion in which they won, where it was defensive and special teams touchdowns. But with that caveat that it was a weird game, Wentz played really well. He was 12th last week in completion percent over expected.
Just obviously visibly better, but than the other guy.
The eye test, he looked good too. The eye test, he looked good. He was 8th.
He threw to his left.
He threw to his left. That's something I haven't seen in technically a few months until the last time we saw Sam Darnold play for this team. So I don't know. I feel pretty good about it. It's not fun to say like Carson Wentz is a pretty big win for this offense. Carson Wentz seems like a big win for this offense, man.
We're never seeing JJ McCarthy again. I mean, McCarthy too. Rough break.
He's getting home alone in Europe. They're like, we forgot.
They're just leaving him in Ireland because McCarthy. I'm pretty sure this guy's from Ireland. He's just not allowed to come back. Is that too mean?
It might be a little. I mean, we do know he's getting around fine because he's not wearing a boot and he's not injured. So.
I swear I've never seen a weirder sideline report than that. Where the whole point was Tracy, update us on the injured player. Well, here's the thing, guys. He's not hurt. I'm probably reading.
But Kevin O'Connell definitely wants to make sure he remains unhurt.
They want to keep him safe. That's what they want to do. We want to keep our listeners safe from Titans, Texans. That's why we're doing it last. Yeah. The Texans shouldn't be touchdown favorites against anybody right now, Kyle Dvorchak. They are against the Titans. Is there a single non-Nico Collins Texan to start right now?
I mean, we saw Woody Marks overtake the RB2 role, but it didn't really change anything for Nick Chubb. He was on there for around half the snaps. He saw 60% of the carries. He is not explosive or efficient, and the only good play he has was a touchdown the opponents let him score. With that being said, he is still the team's clear number 1 back in a game in which they will probably boat race a struggling Titans team. If you drafted Nick Chubb and you are not playing him in this spot, what did you draft him for?
By the way, 7 points. I mean, the Titans are covering this, right? I mean, the Titans are covering, right?
They have to.
They have to cover. If they have any dignity.
I think the thing is,
loves the
driving.
franchise. They cover this.
They're down 3. They're clearly covering. Down 3. Driving. Cam Ward looks. Linebacker. Middle of the field. Right to his chest. And that's going the other direction. The Texans back door.
So Kyle's being a hater, Denny. Are you still a Cam Ward lover? Calvin Ridley versus Alec Ayumaner. Tell us what's going on there. Give us a chig check-in to end the show.
I want to mention that cornerback for the Texans, Derek Stingley Jr. has a rib issue. He missed practice on Wednesday and Thursday. If he is out, that is a bump for probably Ridley, because Stingley would seem to shadow, or at least somewhat shadow, Ridley here. So you feel a little better about starting Ridley if Stingley's out. Ayumaner has a better weekly profile than Ridley.
He does.
Not sure how else to put it. So I feel like he's the better option. Don't get me wrong, it's not a huge gap, but I do think Ayumaner has more weekly upside, I would say, than Ridley. Okonkwo is still out there running all the routes. He's getting good cardio, and we respect that. The Texans are kind of middling against tight ends, so yeah, throw him out there. Have live a little, play a little chick.
He's still top 20, maybe top 18. So yeah, we ended the show on the Titans. Like, that's both depressing and very fitting. By the way, I mean, Daugherty, Carter, why are we not being sent to Ireland?
I'm looking into it. I don't know.
When are they going to play a game in the beautiful Czech Republic? What
I was going to say, Kyle, Dvorchak sounds very Irish to me.
Yeah.
I'm extremely Czech as well.
Denny, I think my Ellis Island time, we were predated Ellis Island, but I think it was Daugherty. It's with the original family.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And yet I am getting up early to cover this game. What's going on there?
I'm curious. Well, that's because I'm going to be there.
Anyways.
Yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm going.
Okay, that's good. That's good. You're an ambassador of sorts.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm going to be the Irish ambassador for this game. I'm going to end the show. That's what I'm going to do. Because we broke down every game. Hopefully every fantasy relevant player. If we somehow missed it, or you want even more detail, there's Kyle's 10 trends coming out of week 3. There's a start 'em sit 'em on Friday. There's Denny's regression files. There's on Friday his funnel report. My rankings. If you want to read up on what happened in week 3 too, that's still the Sunday aftermath. We got you covered everywhere. Mark Garcia and Nick Bottaford also have an injury report they're working on all week long, including Saturday afternoon. So that's really good. Check it out. Check out Denny's Q&A, 1 p.m. Eastern on Friday on the NFL and NBC YouTube page. So for Denny, for Kyle, I'm Pat. Thank you so much for listening. Good luck this weekend. We'll talk to you later.